Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest issue of Comic Book Gentlemen, the podcast where we use our decades of being giant nerds to discuss the most divisive issues in the comic book fandom. I'm your host, Greg, joined by my co-host, Dave.
How's it going?
Well, Dave, it's been another year.
Another
fun time of podcasting.
Oh, it is December.
Yeah, it is December. I don't know where the time flies. I mean, it feels like yesterday we were talking about WandaVision. That was like our first one of January.
Yeah, and we were all excited about oh wow, there's finally some Marvel content.
Yeah.
And now we're just drowning in it.
Exactly. There's like 6 movies coming out in the next month. Like something crazy like that. So just like we did last year, we're going to go through our favorite storylines / favorite arcs or whatever you want to say. Our top 5, we're going to kind of go back and forth. So a little bit of a caveat, especially for me. I mean, it was still COVID year. I didn't leave Fort St. John maybe like once, so so unfortunately there's no comic book stores in Fort St. John. The good news is though, Dave actually introduced me to Marvel Unlimited. Man, that was a lifesaver this year.
Oh yeah.
It was, I'm sure we'll do a podcast one day just talking about digital comics the whole way through. But
it's a great service.
It's a great service. Like they have, that's when we did our Marvel crossover event podcast. Yeah. I just read them all on Marvel Unlimited. Yeah. I was just like,
everything's there. It's great. I love the way that the app works itself, like moves from panel to panel. It's great.
I have some issues with it, but like I said, that's a whole different podcast. But the other side of that story is I literally read like 90% Marvel books this year.
Is there anything else?
Yeah. Maybe this thing called like Dark Comics or something comics. I don't know. No. Yeah, it doesn't exist. So
apparently not last year.
Not last year. So my list is definitely going to be 90% Marvel. So I don't know about Dave, but we'll kind of see how it goes as we go ahead. But Dave, why don't you start us off? What was your number 5?
My number 5. So this one was really personal. It got a lot of I checked a lot of reviews because I was very curious as to what the general thoughts were on The Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
So Amazing Spider-Man, writer was Nick Spencer. The artists were very much various artists over this last stretch, which kind of culminated and finished up with Sinister War, which was the Sinister Six versus another Sinister Six with Spider-Man in the middle, while Kindred's still kicking around doing his stuff. And it got some people trashed it, some people were like, hey, these are the things I like, these are the things I didn't. What stuck out to me is it fixed everything that Dan Slott did. And here I go on my Dan Slott turn again.
You turn the timer down to 0.
Yeah, exactly. So and not everything, but I mean, it basically erased One More Day, and kind of tied all of these kind of loose end elements, like even stuff that happened a while ago, such as Norman Osborn having a secret affair with Gwen Stacy's and having these two twins that at one point were fighting Spider-Man, and it pretty much it was like I felt at least like Nick Spencer went along and he was like, I'm going to take every Spider-Man story that everybody was kind of like waffling on or just absolutely hated and fix it.
Nice.
Somehow. Yeah. Right? So that's what it really stuck out to me, was because I always felt like the erasing of the marriage between Mary Jane and him. Still don't know what the hell happened with their kid that they had. That was supposedly stillborn, but of course Norman Osborn had the kid shipped away somewhere. So I don't know if that's ever going to come back, or maybe I missed something and they did address it. But anyways, it was nice to just see him pull all these elements together. And yeah, there were definitely some garbage points in it where I was just like, okay, this is really sloppy, just trying to ram it in there. But the point was to get it back to where it needed to be, where I felt like the natural transition for Spider-Man is like you're not the Spider Kid on the block anymore. That's more Miles Morales' jam, right? Or even Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen, or some of the other ones. He's more the I guess if you could look at the Bat family, it's kind of like he's more of the Batman. Yeah. I'm the older guard that has to kind of be a little more responsible. But it was just good to see, them kind of bring him and Mary Jane back together, bring it to a point where it was like, okay, the people that are supposed to be dead are dead. Yeah. The people that were here that really everybody was angry with, they just fixed it. And the biggest thing in there that I found really interesting is he really stuck on this, how Kindred kept pointing at the point of how he is so Peter Parker is so selfish, and he kept using all these examples of like things that he's done throughout the years that really like look heroic, but really at the end of the day they're really selfishly motivated.
Yeah.
Such as like when the original Green Goblin lost his memory, and instead of like turning him in and saying, "Hey, this is the Green Goblin," he just let him go free, because as long as he couldn't remember he was Spider-Man, he was cool with it. But then he went on to kill Gwen Stacy, a whole bunch of other people. So it was like how he tied into like his selfishness and how that's affected everybody else, and how that's killed various people throughout the years. It was just that was probably the element that I liked the most as far as like a good story writing.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of it was just, to me, was just fix.
Yeah. Let's
fix and get this back to the core of what a Spider-Man book is, and for that, plus I mean, two Sinister Six groups fighting.
That's so cool.
It was great. Art was a little various, like it was various from comic to comic.
Yeah.
There was a little Mark Bagley, a little Patrick Gleason in there, but there wasn't like a uniform, like one guy was doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
So the art was kind of up and down, but at the end of the day, I got what I wanted out of it, which was like, we're gonna bring this back to the norm of Spider-Man and move it forward from there. And for me, that was my number 5, because I was like, finally, my Spider-Man is back.
Spider-Man's back, and I've heard some things about where it's heading right now, and it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great thing that they've been doing a lot. I feel like this is a trend that Marvel's doing a lot now, where they're actually progressing storylines.
Yeah.
Like they're actually going, okay, we have new kids on the block to take over the mantle, but now we have the older guys needing to head a different direction. Like you have Thor is now Thor in charge of Asgard. You have just a bunch of different characters kind of evolving their characters, because I mean that was the biggest issue with Dan Slott's storyline, is it reversed a bunch of stuff, plus it like just diverted off the regular path, right? Whereas like you read a character for decades and it's like, come on, I want progression, I want them to evolve and grow and all that stuff. So I mean it's a little bit unfortunate that they had to fix things, but at least they're now heading the right direction.
I mean that's the term I use, is fix things, because I really felt like there was some stuff that got broken, especially with the one A New Day, that was not widely received as a great thing. So a lot of that's been kind of smoothed out, and it's gotten back to the core of and I think that's been one of Nick Spencer's like focuses, is let's bring it back to the core of who Spider-Man is, and that was the great thing, is like the supporting cast was so important throughout the years, and that really just kind of got pushed. They were there, but they just kind of got pushed off to the side. Like, Mary Jane getting kicked off and then going to work for Tony Stark. And
so random.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
I could see it in a world in which Tony knew who MJ was.
Sure.
But because they reversed Spider-Man's storyline, it's just randomly MJ's part of Tony Stark's world.
It was just, I was just glad to see it come home to its roots. I hope, and moving forward with the new, after I think it was issue 74, starting with issue 75, you've now got a new creative team moving forward, so we'll see where it goes from there.
That's cool. Yeah. My last question for you: the two Sinister Six teams, was it like just 6 Spider-Man rogue villains versus 6 Spider-Man rogue villains, or were it kind of like iterations of each kind of like?
No, because there was originally like, and I'm drawing a blank on it. Like there was the original like Sinister Six, where you got like the Dr. Octopus and the Green Goblin, and yada yada yada. And then you've got the other one over on the other side, was more of the it was like the Savage Six, so it was like the there was the he's like a Stegosaurus cross guy, like a dinosaur, like they're very like animalistic, I guess, or animal based. So there's like these 2 Sinister Six versions that were kind of going on.
So why were they fighting?
You
have to read it.
It's I enjoyed it because it was just like, hey, here's gonna be 4 issues of 2 just Spider-Man in the middle getting just pummeled, and these two teams going, and like I said, it just went differently than I expected, and I was glad to see the Kindred storyline kind of wrap up and go from there.
I'll have to check it out for sure. So my number 5 is the only non-Marvel thing I have on my list, and it's Attack on Titan Volume 30 by Hajime Yasiyama. He did all of Attack on Titan. So when I said last year, it's really funny because this was my complaint last year for the book, was it's like you can see it coming to a close.
Yeah.
And that was all last year. That was my thing. It's like, it's going to end soon. It's going to end soon. But then throughout 2021, it just kept kind of dragging on.
Yeah.
Where they'd say like, oh, it's ending soon, but then here's another volume, you know, type of thing. So that was my only downside to it. It was like, okay, come on, man, just end. But here's the good thing I like about it was, and this is spoilers for Attack on Titan. I know Dave probably doesn't give a shit. But if you care about Attack on Titan spoilers, you know, skip ahead maybe 5-10 minutes. So the main character, Eren, is now just evil piece of shit.
Okay.
He just it's not a complete 180 turn, but basically what he does is goes, I'm tired of the world trying to kill us all. I'm just gonna super nuke the planet. That's what, like, but with giant titans, like, just to trample everything. The thing I love the most about it is there's a scene in the book where he's talking to a young kid before he goes super evil, and because he's trying to figure out, like, is everybody evil, all this stuff. But then he even saves the kid from getting killed, because it was like the race is a huge part of this book. And he saves the kid being killed, and then later in, like, it flashes forward to the present day where he's super nuking the planet, and you see the kid that he saved. So in your head, you're like, oh, Eren's gonna see the kid that he saved, and he's gonna go like, oh, you know, there is good in the world. I'm gonna love it. No, he trampled the shit out of the kid. There was like a 2-page spread of him slowly stepping on this kid, exploding him as he walks away. Lovely. And it was excruciating. I was like, what the hell is this? And like, I just love the fact that they turned this character from issue 1 all the way to issue 34, not issue, but like, you know what I mean, volume, and just his transition to absolute tragic hero is just insane. And like, I have no idea where the ending's gonna go. Like, basically what's happening is all of his friends are jumping out of an airship about to land on him and try to murder him. But he's like this, you know, 200-foot titan. Yeah. And it's just kind of like a Godzilla versus, you know, like type of thing. And it's just like, and he even said, like, I could stop you if I wanted to, like with a snap of my fingers, but I'm going to give you a chance to stop me because I want you to stop me type of thing. And it's just this crazy stuff where it's just like, where is this going? And I can't wait because I'm very excited. I'm sure if I had read 34 before this podcast, I would have had that one as my number 5, but I'll have to wait to see that. Until then, 33 is my number 5 because it's just batshit insane, and I can't wait for the story. I still think Attack on Titan is one of the greatest stories I've read in a long time. You should go check it out. But yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I've never seen a person who was a hero go that evil, you know, like that 180 of a turn. Like, it's nuts. Wow. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't realize, I guess, how popular a lot of the Attack on Titan is because my niece, who I just absolutely support in her comic book reading, or in this case her manga. One of the books she was looking for was Attack on Titan, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go find this thing. Couldn't find it anywhere. You know, there were a lot of the other ones that she was looking for, which, like, I mean, there were so many in this list of books she gave me. I think I ended up getting her like 10 books. Wow. But it was just, there are so many books out there that I'm not even aware of. And I remember sitting in the car and talking to her about Tokyo Ghoul once, and just trying to get the down low on what is this and what's going on. And it's just very unique stories, very unique takes. So it's interesting to hear that, you know, instead of playing that stupid trope of like oh, I saw the light, you know, and I went that direction. It just you know, he just kept going the direction that he was going and trampled this book.
We definitely, one of these days, we have to have a podcast where I'd convince you to read a manga because there's so many.
I still have your
My Hero Academia.
Yeah, Hero Academia. I will. Okay, 2022 commitment. I will read the first one.
Yeah, thank you. It's not even the best one.
No, I'll read it. I'll read it and check it out.
Yeah, fun fact. There was a manga this year or last year called Demon Slayer that broke international records.
That was one of the ones that she asked for.
Because that one, it was impossible to get because everybody in the world wanted it. And it broke sales records like insane. So
what is the, like, what do you see in the difference, like, with that being like one of your you know, your top 5 for this year? What do you see in the difference in between, you know, like, where manga separates itself from like your traditional comic books?
For sure, and I think this is definitely something we can get in more into, like I said, when we actually force you to read a manga.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things about manga and anime in general is, like, it actually has a full story. Like, it has a start, it has a beginning. Like, I love the fact that comics like Marvel and DC, you can have the same character be relevant in the 60s and it's still relevant in 2020.
Sure.
But you still run into this issue sometimes where it's like, oh, I don't know what this is referencing. Like, for like you were saying, like, there's so many stories that they had to fix that were from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That if a new person wanted to get in today, they'd be like, I don't know where the frick's this going. Whereas a lot of anime and manga, I mean, there's a couple exceptions, but most of them are like, here's the start, here's the finish. It's gonna end one day.
Yeah.
And it's a full story. And like you said, it's just the amount of the different types of tropes are great.
Yeah.
Like, they do have tropes, but it's a refreshing trope compared to after reading Marvel for 20 years. Exactly, right? Yeah. Like I said, like a regular hero turning evil would see a little kid and go like, oh, you know, I gotta repent. Yeah, what was I doing? I gotta repent. Whereas, you know, in anime, it's like, nah, murder that kid. Who cares? Type of thing. And but then it still has a point, you know. Yeah. And obviously, not all manga's perfect. You know, there's a lot out there that's trash. But the ones that are great, I feel like they resonate so much with so many audiences and whatnot. So it's and like I said, the reason I keep trying to get you to read My Hero is because to me that's what X-Men should have been in a certain way. Yeah, exactly. So it's like one of those things. Like, X-Men's biggest problem right now is that because they have to constantly recycle everything, because they can't have a definitive end. That's what kind of holds it back sometimes. Like I said, it's great sometimes, but it also holds it back in other stations. So, so that's my quick synopsis of manga. So what's your number 4, Dave?
My number 4 was I'm going to say it was a kind of a late entry in the year because I wanted to get ready for the movie. Mm-hmm. So I started reading the Eternals.
Oh yeah.
The new Eternals comic by Karen Gillian, and the artist is Ribic is one of, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He's fantastic. Did Secret Wars, did Thor, God of Thunder. Just great. And the storyline is only death is eternal. Is what they call it, right? Okay. That's so cool. It just, not only was it great art and I found it great reading, it was one of those, like, it was like a lore dump because who are the Eternals? You know, like, so it was so many pages, much like what I found in Power of 10 and House of X, was the fact that you had like these full pages where they were just explaining shit, and that's what they did in this as well. Was just explaining like who the Eternals are. You know, what is Titan? What's the difference between the Eternals who are on Titan versus these ones? Why is Thanos a Titan and why is Eros? AKA Firefox, a Titan, or an Eternal. You know, like, it was a lot of lore dump. There's a mystery in there, so there's like a murder whodunit kind of thing, which is kind of neat. But and then there's like two Thanos throwdowns. Between
one book.
Between the first one was Icarus and Thanos, and then the other one is like basically more of the Eternals and Thanos. And it was just. I really liked it because it was kind of refreshing. I'm a bit of a lore nerd. Like I like those kinds of things where it's like, oh, okay, let me you know, read about these things and understand the dynamics of what's going on. It was a surprise to me that I enjoyed it as much as I did. A lot of the characters are jerks. I don't really like it. None of the characters I look at and I'm like, oh, that one's a good person. Yeah. No, they're all Eternals and they're all a-holes to some extent. But it was just it was also so much different than what they ended up portraying in the movie.
Oh, really?
As far as like how the characters operate, like I found like the biggest difference for me was Cersei. Like, Cersei loves Earth because she just loves apparently sleeping. Like she likes sleeping with everybody. Oh. So that was like something that they conveyed in the comic. Now I haven't read any of the older stuff, but that's what they conveyed that's why she loves Earth. You know, like, well, you know, who would I sleep with if Earth wasn't here, kind of thing.
That's like, what a weird character.
Yeah, which in the Eternals movie, way different. Way different. Just like not anything like that. Icarus. A little different, just in the portrayal in the movies versus the comics, but like overall, it was just gave you a good sense of who all the characters are. There's kind of like an interesting story there because there's this murder and they're trying to figure out like who did it, and there's, you know, like the classic betrayal and, you know, all this stuff that went on. it was a good, for me, not being much of an Eternals fan, it was a good read with good art, good writing.
Yeah.
And good introduction in the sense that like you could read and not feel like a complete lost idiot because you're going like, what the hell are they talking about? And then you have to go into Wikipedia and find all this stuff. No, they kind of summarized it for you as best they could and kind of put some stuff in there so you could kind of follow along. Not that I didn't have to do some digging because sometimes they were like, oh, they're cousins of these people, and you're like, who the hell are they?
Who?
So then you had to go look that up. But for the most part, it was just good. It was refreshing. It was something different. Where there's not a large concern of like, oh, it's just Captain America doing his Captain America thing or Thor doing his Thor thing. It was just like, hey, here's a new group of heroes that interact with the heroes I'm used to, but they're just different. And I enjoyed it. It was a bit of a surprise for me.
Yeah, because I know in podcast past, you are usually very critical whenever a new movie's coming out. So, of course, they have to have, Taskmaster number 1 or Black Widow number 1 coming out at the exact same time. So you think this is actually like a good way? Yeah,
because I was surprised. Like when I first saw it, and the reason why I didn't jump on it right away is I saw who was writing it, and I like Karen Gillan. He's done some great work. He did some great work on Iron Man. I was skeptical because I was like, oh, okay, you threw the artist in there to entice people, and then he's going to be gone in 3 issues, and no, he's still on there.
That's good.
So I hope he sticks around for a run kind of like what he did with Thor, where take a break, we'll bring somebody else in for a bit, but like he did a long stint on that comic, which really made it a big favorite of mine for that time. So I'm hoping with this it's the same thing because I think his art's great.
Oh yeah. I think that's like the number one way to Dave's heart as a comic is just have the same artist from start to finish.
Yeah,
that's like your biggest complaint.
I hated that. Like I mean, they really started doing it in the 90s when they had like some of these like huge artists like Jim Lee and McFarlane. You'd all of a sudden like you go into the store and you're like, oh my god, the latest issue of X-Force got Jim Lee. Look at that cover, it's so amazing. Then you'd open it up and it was like some dumpster fire artist that did the rest of it, and it was just so upsetting. And like to me, it's like there is a certain connection between a writer and a good writer and a good artist. The artist doesn't even necessarily have to be good if they fit the tone of the writer and they're consistent. It just makes the comic that much better.
I've seen some comics where it's like they'll change an artist for like one issue, but it's like I think it depends on how you use it, right? Because I've seen some of those issues be like supplementary issues or like in between issues, so it makes sense that it's a different artist, type of thing. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, okay, it's cool that Eternals are good.
Yeah, I think it was decent.
It was funny because like, and again, we'll talk this in another podcast when our plan for January. Hey, spoiler, a teaser for January. We're gonna do the MCU all of 2021. Eternals is just one of those groups where like I have no idea going in who the hell anybody was. And I thought they like it's interesting to hear how much they changed from comic to
I found the tone of not all the characters but some of the characters, especially the major ones, just a little different. I found it. I kind of caught me off guard when I went and saw the movie and it was like, huh? okay. Like. Their powers were the same, and they did the same thing. It was just characterizers are different.
Yeah, interesting. My number 4 is actually Strange Academy by Scotty Young, and then Humberto Ramos does the art for that one, which is really funny because when I first saw the art for it, I was like, oh, Scotty Young has a new book because I thought it was Scotty Young art. No. I was like, no, he's the writer, and then Humberto Ramos does the art. So the things I like about Strange Academy is like, it's very much like X-Men meets Harry Potter in the sense that you have young kids, they're getting into powers, they don't really understand. You put them all in a school together and they just learn how to use magic, 2, how to get along with each other, and 3, hijinks ensue type of thing. Another thing I like a lot about it is how diverse the cast is. Not just in the sense of like, oh, there's different, she's African American, she's white, type of thing. It's also the fact that it's like there's Asgardians there, there's frost giants there in the school. There's the son of Dormammu's in the school, which is great. I love Doyle. He's hilarious. I think it's just a really nice, fun book. Where it's just and like I said in our previous podcast when we were talking about power systems, magic is so diverse. you can do anything with it. It's kind of similar to like the X-Men, where it's like you would have one guy shoot lasers out of his eye, whereas the other one, heals himself. It's the same thing with this group of kids, where like, one of them does fire magic, and one of them has a jacket that's a demon type of thing. It's like very diverse that way too.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the art is great in the sense of like it really conveys the childlike wonder of it, while also still having, when it's a dark scene of like, oh, there's danger around the corner, it also pushes that a lot too. So it's great art for that. And then I think Scotty Young writes really well in this as well. My caveats with it, like the things I don't like about it, is I think having Doctor Strange and the other teachers be such pivotal people in the Marvel Universe, it takes you out of it a little bit. Like, if you don't know who these people are, it's like, oh, it's just their, magic teacher, who cares? But then when you go, that's the Scarlet Witch teaching you, like, divination. Like, shouldn't she be busy doing something else? Like, I think that's my biggest issue with it, is just, like it's good to have the teachers there. Yeah. But, like, when you have magic teaching a class, it's like, aren't you supposed to be on Krakoa right now? Doing something? X-Men things? Exactly, right? It's just like, this doesn't really make sense that you're here. And the other thing that they do really weird with it is, like, some of the situations they put the kids in makes no sense when it comes to child safety. Yeah. There's a storyline in which they play a game where they hop through dimensional doors to different areas, and it's like, how did none of you die? Like legit, they were in like hell. They went to hell. They went to like a frozen wasteland. They went to like, a alternate dimension, like all this stuff. And it's just like, who's supervising you? Like, it makes no sense. And they do try to, like, they give hints of how they're explaining things away in the background, like, oh, we'll explain this later type of thing, but like, because they still want the kids to kind of just do their own thing. But yeah, it's one of those things again where you just think about it a little too hard, and it's like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But then they go, oh, but look at this fancy little spell they're doing over here. And then it also has, of course they're young kids, so you have the dynamics of, ooh, he kind of likes her and she likes him and all that stuff, dude. I'm always a sucker for that. So I do like Strange Academy a lot. I actually also think this is we were kind of talking about this earlier today. I think this is a great book if you have like a teenager you're trying to get into comic books. Yeah. Like, I think it's made for that age range, and it's not too dark, but it's dark enough that's still interesting type of thing. Yeah, like
and I find Ramos, who I just missed. I missed by 10 minutes an opportunity to meet him at a comic book store in Calgary once. And I was so looking forward to it, because at the time he was drawing Amazing Spider-Man, and there was an arc with the Green Goblin, and he just has a way, like, I find, and I don't know if you find this in that comic, like, does his art fit the childlike kids, right? But at the same time, he draws the Green Goblin in a way where like one eye is like huge and the other one's a little smaller, and then like it's just got a pinprick in one, and the other, like, he just has a way of conveying, like, okay, I looked at that picture of Green Goblin and I was like, oh my god, that guy's nuts. You can just see it. And I was curious, knowing that he drew it, like how his art maybe enhances or portrays those kids a little more just by even looking at them.
Yeah, like I said, Doyle Dormammu's son, he's just a flaming skull head. His expressions are so good. Like, he'll have scenes where, like, you can tell he's blushing, and it's like, how is a flaming skull head blushing, type of thing. Yeah. And it's just like I said, it's a really good mix of, like, it's funny for kids and it's dark enough that it has that, like, still, like, there's tenseness to it sometimes. Yeah. It's just a really good balance.
Cool.
And like I said, like, the biggest complaint I have to it is when you compare it to the rest of the Marvel Universe, it makes zero sense. Like, if this was its own comic, like, I know there's a couple other comics out there, Excellence, I think, is one of them, where it's like, it's its own world and it has its own magic system and everything, and it makes sense because it's separated. But like, so to have the Strange Academy within the Marvel Universe doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's still good. It's still a good time. So
cool.
Yeah, I recommend it. So
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I think you'll like it because especially
I've flipped through a couple issues.
Yeah,
just because I love the art.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually sat down and actually read the comic, and I did enjoy when Ramos did. For a little while, he did Champions.
Oh yeah.
And I did like again, that art fitting the tone of the comic.
Yep.
was great.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my number 4. What's your number 3, Dave?
Number 3 was Thor. Donny Cates. Nick Klein. Prey.
Yep. Funny story. This is my number 3 too.
Oh, well, there we go.
We synced up.
We synced up here.
Yeah.
I found it like at the heart of it, like, because I read each issue as it was coming out. At the heart of it, it was freaking terrifying.
Oh yeah.
The fact that you have, Thor going to go on a vacation, so I'm going to let Donald Blake, who I can't even remember the last time I even thought about Donald Blake. I'm going to let Donald Blake out, and, he can, reconnect with some people and, whatever. And he comes out, and it's just like, it's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And just the whole story of him exploring what would happen to that character if he was left in this, like, perpetual, like, perfect
Hellscape.
world.
Yeah.
And just how, he'd go nuts. I just thought it was so interesting to do, and like that story, like, it was just something I didn't see coming. I like the tense moments, like, especially when he was out for dinner with
Jane Foster.
With Jane Foster, and just like the whole time I'm just like, oh my god, he's gonna do something. Like, he wrote it so well, and I thought it was just such a good follow up to that kind of first arc that he started, where it was basically he's Thanos's herald.
Galactus.
Galactus's herald, which was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have, like, it follow up, and it was just like, oh, okay, he's gonna go on vacation. Oh, Donald Blake's, oh my god, and it was just awesome.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait for each issue to come out. I wanted to read it right away. It was so well done.
Yeah, I love Donald Blake's design with the crazy beard and the like and the axe and stuff. Like, it was so good.
Like, at some point he just stopped caring.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, and then when Thor, you first see what Donald Blake did to the perfect world, and Thor's just like, what the hell happened? Going on? And there's just dead bodies everywhere, and like, written in blood and stuff like that. Like, oh man, it was so good. I think this is something that Donny Cates does so well, which is like, find something that was a thing in the old comics that was like kind of goofy and tropey, bring it to the modern times and just crank it to 11. Like, because I mean, secret identities was such a thing in the 60s and stuff that nobody cares about anymore. To then bring it back to the modern day and him be a psychopath is so good.
I mean, your point of him dialing it up to 11, that's what I find he does. Is just like in such a short period too. Like, like it wasn't like his first arc with Galactus was not like, it wasn't like 12 issues or 50 issues later you finally get into. No, it was like 5-6 issues kind of thing, and it was the same thing with this one. It was like 5 issues of just like crazy Donald Blake and Thor trying to get out of this perfect world, and then to come back in like the form of the Destroyer, and it was just so good.
It was so good. And you had Beta Ray Bill, you had Throg, you had you
had all the
Thors. Yeah. It was so good, and then you even had Loki at the end, like being able to lift the hammer and stuff like that. Like, it was so good. I think my biggest issue with it is I didn't like how it ended. I thought just trapping Donald Blake again just felt very like, oh, come on. Like, you could have had, I feel like there's more you could have done with that character or just kill him, type of thing. Like, to trap him again just seems so, I guess they just want to use him again, but it's just possibly, but it's just one of those things where it's just like, you had this character who was gone for decades, bring him back for 5 issues. It's like, oh yeah, he just kind of ended up in the same spot he was. And it's just like
he's in prison.
Yeah, so I was just, I mean, it is poetic, but at the same time, it's like I wish they had done something a little bit different with it, and I think that would have bumped it up a little bit for me. But
I can't wait for Donald Blake 2.
Like,
because I think like the fact that he got out, kind of. Flexed his muscles a little bit, and then gets trapped, and the way he's trapped, and the way that Loki did it, like in the sense of like just what he's done to him, I just think is just gonna further drive him nuts.
Oh yeah.
And it's I'm looking forward to it, but it was just such an interesting take on, like you said, that like the mantle of, like, at one point it was like Donald Blake was a person, and then he had a stick. And then he hit the stick on the ground, and then he turned into Thor, and it was like because he needed to have a secret identity, and then at some point they just went, we're just gonna get rid of Thor. We're just gonna get rid of that.
Yeah, and it's funny because like most secret identities are. It's just him outside the costume, type of thing. Like, it's Clark Kent, put the glasses back on. If it's Bruce Wayne without the cowl, type of thing.
Yeah.
But, like, I just assume that's what Donald Blake was for Thor. Is, I hit a stick and I just turned myself into looking smaller.
Yeah.
And into a doctor. I didn't realize it was a whole different personality.
Yeah.
Or, like, a person type of thing.
And I like the way he rewrote that. Because originally it was, like, Donald Blake's person. And he, stumbled across it and he turns into Thor. But then it's like, no, actually... Odin created him.
Yeah.
And it kind of changed the dynamic of that a little bit, and it was just I thought it was very well done.
Oh yeah.
And in such a short period of time to create such a memorable character, and kind of retool a very old concept of Thor. It was just great.
Donny Cates, I feel like there's Donny Cates and Al Ewing, I feel like are some of the two best writers out there right now. They're both so good. And again, they do it because they both do the same thing, where it's let's take a thing from the old comic books and just modernize it and whatnot. And it's just such a good read, and it's especially for old comic book fans like us, where it's I remember this 20 years ago. It's so cool what they've done with it now.
And it's so funny because I saw a YouTube video of a person that was just bashing comics in general and just jumping off board of everything. And they gave some good examples. The one of the examples of the things that upset him was Children of the Atom, and how that the whole concept of that comic was driven out. But one of the main complaints coming from this person was they've just completely forgotten about the old guard, and I find no, I don't think so much. You're always gonna have the villains, you're always gonna have the Green Goblins and the for Thor, you're gonna always have Loki, and it's just you're always gonna have these aspects. I've found, at least recently in a lot of comics, they've been really going back and finding old stuff and bringing it forward and kind of twisting it or changing it or maybe finishing the storyline or whatever. So that's what I found with that. It was just so interesting to go oh yeah, Donald Blake. Oh yeah, I forgot he even existed. He was a thing. Yeah. And bring it back. That was great.
Yeah, it was a really good time.
So good.
So speaking of Al Ewing, my number 2, because number 3 was Thor Prey as well.
Yeah.
Immortal Hulk. We've talked forever about Immortal Hulk. It's still one of the best comics I've read in such a long time. Al Ewing. The specific one I want to point out this year is Volume 7, which is Hulk is Hulk. Yeah. And that's a Zenmu arc. Oh man, that was a trip. Freaking Zemnu's terrifying. No idea who he was, and then to have him say oh, I was the original Hulk, and all this stuff, and it's just oh shit, that's crazy. To be such a metaphor for capitalism, and how evil it is, I was especially for the year we've had, I was heck yeah. And then and just to have the Hulk go you guys are stupid, I'm right, shut up, and then just being so mad at everybody for loving Zemnu and all this crap, and then just him beating the shit out of him, and then I love Immortal Hulk, and I thought this arc was just another knock out of the park for Ewing and whatnot, and I think I did again, one of my only things I didn't like about it was just the way they wrapped up the Minotaur storyline, which is Zemnu just killing him, which I do, like I said, it's a good metaphor for how capitalism will consume you, even if you're the guy on top, one day it'll catch up with you type of thing. Yeah. But it's just one of those things where the Minotaur guy was so menacing, it kind of sucks that that's how they dealt with him. But man, I love Zemnu. They had the morning show, they had the cereal, they had the everything about it.
It was the bomb for everybody.
Exactly. I thought it was a great time. Did you end up getting, I guess, you're way past that, eh?
Yeah. My number 2 actually was the same thing. Immortal Hulk.
Oh man.
2 for 2. Yeah. Was that it was slightly ahead in the I think it's the story arc that comes after that, or maybe it might be 2 after that, which was the weakest one there is.
Okay.
And it was again much of the same thing, just taking interesting aspects, flipping it on its head, and then on top of that you've got interesting foes coming in that are a couple old foes, couple newer ones. It was just an interesting mix. And I know you haven't gotten to it yet, so I won't spoil it. But it was just, again, I think Al Ewing, Joe Bennett's art is unfortunate, with what happened with Joe Bennett. But it's just such a good mesh. It's such a good mesh of interesting story, gory art. And it's been like that since day one, and it's just taken the Hulk to a whole new level of just what the, I don't understand what's going on, but it's so cool. It's so gory. Yeah. It's they always describe him, and I don't know if this is how he decided that he was going to write the comic like this, but they always describe he's the Hulk's a monster. The Hulk's a monster. So I was almost he went I'm going to turn this into a horror monster book.
Yeah.
And it's just been fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, right through. I've read right through to the end, issue 50.
Nice.
Didn't disappoint the whole way through.
Oh, I can't wait. Like, I would have caught up this year, but like, we're talking about Marvel Unlimited. Even though I have all of them available, I'm still, there's certain ones I'm still collecting physically.
Yep.
So like Immortal Hulk for sure, collecting physically. Ghost Rider I haven't read at all because I'm still collecting physically. But like Immortal Hulk is just it was really funny. My parents were up a couple weeks ago because we haven't seen them in a long time, and my dad, I always pass it because he used to. I mean, he's the guy who got me into comics as a kid, right? So now it's my turn to start giving him good storylines.
Hey, check this out.
Check this out. So I gave him Immortal Hulk, and we're like, having a family, and I thought, I'll give this to him. He'll go home and read it. He literally stopped everything and just read Immortal Hulk as we're hanging out as a family. And I'm like, is it good? He's like, yeah, everybody leave. I'm busy. Like it's such a good read, and it's just
and it touches on so many like interesting points, and especially with the all the personalities of Bruce Banner and the Hulk, and why each of these personalities was created, and at what time, and it's kind of bringing them all back into the fold. It was just like, again, another huge shout out to like anybody that's that's been a fan of the character for a while, anybody that was a fan of like especially the Peter David runs.
Great
just it's just great. Like just it's such a good comic, and unfortunately it ended at 50. But hey, do you know what? There's a start and a finish. Yeah. So it's good. It's good that way.
And it's funny because like Donny Cates is taking over Hulk, and then Al Ewing's taking over Venom. So it's funny that they just switch comics. It's like, I liked what you did there. Let me show you what I can do.
Watch what I can do.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just gonna out crazy each other, which is gonna be so good.
Yeah.
So my number one, and I gotta admit, I had a little bit of a hard time doing the top 5 because my number one blew everything else out of the water. Like, I love Immortal Hulk, but my number one, I was like, this is the best comic I've read in like 10 years. Like, it was so good, and I can't believe I keep telling you, gotta read it, Dave. Hellions by Zeb Wells is so good. Steven Sigonia, I think, is the art. Yeah, it's so good because it's so freaking funny. Because it's literally. So you have House of 10 Powers of X. World building. The mutants are bigger than they've ever been. And the other crazy thing about it is that all the villains are now with the heroes.
Yes.
So you have Apocalypse is with Excalibur. You have Magneto and Xavier best friends again. You have, Mystique is hanging out and all that stuff. You just have, and then there's Mr. Sinister. The craziest of crazies of all time. And they're like, Mr. Sinister, guess what? You're on the island. But what we're going to give you is you're going to build your own team. And he decides to pick the most, like, insane throwaway characters he could possibly find. He had John Greycrow, Nanny and Orphan Maker. You have Wild Child. Psylocke and Havoc are in there, which are okay. And then they have this other telepath. I always forget his name, but he's like... he thinks he's the greatest, and he convinces everybody with his telepathy to think he's the greatest. And it's just one of those things where it's like, everybody hates their guts because they're such assholes. But then Sinister's like, I'll take you guys, come with me. And then they just, like, basically Mr. Sinister has all over the world just, like, random shit that he's disturbed throughout the world. And he's like, I'm just going to send these people in there, they'll fix the problem. And if they die, I don't care. Type of thing. So, like, they'll have constant missions where just all of them, they're fighting the entire time. They're killing each other the entire time because they know they can all get resurrected. They get stuck in stupid traps because Mr. Sinister, by the way, I forgot to tell you this was booby trapped, type of thing. And they blow up. And it's just a wild ride. And, like, freaking, we'll talk one day about Ten of Swords. This was the best Ten of Swords for real, because basically what happens is, like, he says, okay, they're gonna be busy. Krakoa versus Araka are gonna be fighting. So what I want you guys to do is just kind of sneak in the back way and see if you can find a secret way to take out Arako. What he was actually getting them to do was infiltrate the Mr. Sinister version of Arako to steal his DNA. And so they end up going all the way there and, like, getting their ass beat. They got absolutely wiped out because they had no idea what they were getting into, and they all got wiped out. So eventually they all, like, kind of stumble back through the portal. The only people who make it are Havoc, Psylocke, and Greycrow. Mr. Sinister just stands there and just caps them all. Because he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'll just reset you all. And it's just like, everything about it was so funny. So I looked up Zeb Wells because I was like, this guy's so... I was like, this guy's hilarious. He wrote for Robot Chicken. He wrote, he wrote Civil War, Runaways with Young Avengers, which I loved. He just secretly wrote so many amazing things that I love,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
this is where have you been all my life, buddy? That type of thing. Like, dude, you gotta read it. It's so good.
I've got that one. I've got all of the. I've got all of them lined up because I reread just recently the Powers and House, just to kind of really refresh myself, and then I'm gonna read through all of them, like even the Marauders and everything else in the chronological order, just to get the full scope of everything that was going on. Because much to the point, like, I mean, it's funny, like, you've got the X-Men. I almost feel like that comic in that like after Powers and whatnot was kind of like almost like an afterthought.
Oh, 100%.
X-Force has been very interesting, like in some of the stuff that they've had there. But like, it's funny how like two of the more popular comics coming out of that was Marauders and Hellions.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Hellions, like if you're gonna go back and really go back.
Yeah.
The Hellions were bad guys.
Yep.
They were basically part of the Hellfire Club, and then you've got the Marauders, who were also bad guys at the time. So two comics named after originally traditionally X-Men villains, are these two groups that have just like stormed away from the pack as far as like the overall scope of X-Men comics.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with that. Like I've tried to read every one of those X-Men books, and the only ones I keep reading are Marauders and Hellions. I do read X-Force, which I just think it's okay.
Yeah.
And then X-Men, I'm still waiting for it to kind of pick up type of thing. But Hellions, hands down, one of the best things I've read in such a long time. Yeah. And I think that's the other thing is like, another reason why Hellions is so good is compared to how much the other books have their heads up their asses sometimes of like, oh, we're the X-Men now.
Yeah.
Like this, ooh, yes, we're the best in the world.
Yeah.
And then you have Hellions where it's like, hey, who gives a shit? Let's go blow up an island, type of thing for no reason. And like they have like Orphan Maker and Nanny are so funny. Okay. Like it's just like, who are you guys and why are you so good?
It's so funny because I remember when I first saw that and I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
They have Orphan Maker and Nanny. Because I remember that from the old X-Force, or X-Factor comic when they originally came out, and I was just like, no.
Dude,
no.
they're the
but
best
the way they're written, like the little bit that I have seen and I have read, I'm like, oh my god, this is like
it's so good.
It's like this writer is really tapped into like, okay, this is what these characters could be like.
Yeah.
It's
and
really
I will mention it does have heart. It's not all this comedy. It does have heart. Like Psylocke dealing with what she's dealing with, and then Grey Crow trying to be there for her but still being awkward. Like it's like they have a bit of a romance happening, but it feels so natural. That's not a problem. Where it's like, I can see them liking each other, and because they develop it over a series of books and whatnot. But man, it's by and far away one of the best things I've read in a long time. And I mean, we've said before, I'm such a sucker for comedy, and like apparently Zeb Wells is my guy because like Robot Chicken Star Wars is so funny. So it's like I'm down for it. So yeah, anybody out there, go read Hellions. It's a great time. You don't need to know nothing about comics. You'll have a great time. So
I believe if I look it up, if I'm correct, I believe Zeb Wells wrote a number of the Dungeons and Dragons graphic novels that have come over the last little while. With that resurrected Minsk and Boo from the old Baldur's Gate series. So
that's so funny. D&D. Let's see what he's got. Okay, so that's my number one.
Your number one.
That's my number one. I think it's great. Everybody go watch it. What's your number one of the year, Dave?
My number one of the year is Daredevil.
Daredevil. Last year was your number two, so they went up the list.
It went up the list. So with Daredevil, Chip, and I'm gonna butcher his last name, Zdarsky.
Mm-hmm.
And then the artist, Chekatiko. Who knows? Again, sorry.
Yeah, you're listening. We know.
Yeah. Such a good pairing of artist and writer, and I think he's taking these like normal tropes of like Daredevil, who is Daredevil, this kind of thing. And just kind of spinning it differently, like in the way that you're not expecting it. So, like the very beginning arc starts off with Daredevil kills a guy trying to break up a burglary, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Kills a guy, and of course then the cops are after him, and there's a new cop in town that's really just got an absolute he just wants to catch Daredevil. This whole arc's going on. It's just like, well, did he, or was it the Kingpin that set it up and made it look like he did, or not? And then you get to the after comic after comic after comic, as you're building up at the story, it's just like, no, he actually killed him. Wow. Like he was not in full Daredevil shape because he'd just gotten out of almost being dead. So he was taking pills, and he was just off. And because he was off, he like threw a kick or punch, knocked this guy against the wall. The guy cracked and broke his neck and died. So what he did in the most recent storyline, which I just want to get right, which is called Doing Time, is Daredevil steps forward and says, no, I'm going to turn myself in. But I'm only going to turn myself in if you prosecute me and put me in jail as Daredevil.
Really?
Not as, as Matt Murdock.
Yeah.
So the fact that he normally it's just like, oh, well, did he do it? No, he was set up and all this other crap. And it's like, no, in this it's like, no, he did it. Yeah. He actually did it. And then just the guilt of it, eventually gets him, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna go in. And they have this whole defense, and they're gonna like, okay, we're gonna get, Foggy's like, oh, we're gonna get you off, like this is how it is. And then he just, when they're like, okay, how do you plead? He's like, I plead guilty, and just surprises everybody. He's like, yeah, I need to go to jail. So Daredevil was shipped off to jail.
Jeez, that's crazy.
As Daredevil.
Yeah.
So he gets it's like he's got his orange jumper and his Daredevil mask.
So stupid.
Right. So he's in jail. And you have no Daredevil outside. Yeah. So, again, you're looking at it like, oh, well, somebody's going to pick up the mantle. Who picks up the mantle but Elektra? But not for the reasons that you think. Yeah. So people are like, oh, okay, so she's like, there has to be a Daredevil. No. She's like, she's trying to prove something to Matt Murdock, because just before he goes away to jail, he's like, you're nothing like me. You've always been the way you are. It's not like... I'm doing it for these good reasons. You're secretly doing this for these selfish reasons. And that kind of sticks with her. And she's like, bullshit. Like, fuck you, buddy. Like, I'm going to show you that I am like you. Yeah. Right? She just does it by putting his suit on. So she's not trying to be Daredevil. She's not trying to like, oh, well, there has to be a Daredevil, so I'm going to replace it. She's trying to show him, like, through wearing the suit, I can be like you. Yeah. That's right. Cool. So there's that aspect, and then there's him in jail. So eventually, basically, where we get to is where the arc is right now, is she's been running around as Daredevil for a while. Well, now there's this like grudge match between her and Bullseye is going on. Oh, that's sick. Which is awesome, because it's just like, okay, he killed her, So you got that aspect going on there, and then in jail. Like, there's all these things trying to, like, going against Daredevil, because, of course, Daredevil's in jail, he's going to get beat. So he's becoming, like, the kingpin of the prison. No! That's so cool! So it's just, the art is great, the story arcs are great, and I feel like starting with that very first 6-issue arc, that Chip has really, like, established himself as one of these, like, great Daredevil writers. Like, you had Bendis previously. Like, I read the Bendis run, like, from start to finish. I thought, oh, holy shit. Like, outside of Mark Miller, nobody's beaten. Like, this is, like, it's like him and Mark Miller. Frank Miller. Right? Or Frank Miller, sorry. Yeah. So you got Frank Miller here. If you ever put anybody with Frank Miller, people freak out. So, like, you got Bendis's run, like, right below it. I'm like... I'm really? I'm pushing this guy up right around Bendis. He might even go ahead of Bendis. Wow. It's just so good. Like, there's just been so many great highlights in the comics, like, including, like, when he decides, okay, I'm going to put the suit back on and I'm going to get back out there and fight to be Daredevil. And then Spider-Man shows up and he's like, take the suit off or I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Like, so he gets out of jail. You're retired. No, this was like previously. He's take the suit off, you're retired. So he goes through this whole arc of like, okay, I'm Daredevil, I'm back. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not back. Yeah. I'm taking pills, I'm not right yet. Yeah. Okay, now I'm getting shit on by all these other heroes because they're like, look at the shit you're causing. So, okay, now I'm retired. So then he went through this period of like, I'm just Matt Murdock. Yeah. But then he sees all these other people running around trying to be Daredevil. Like, because it's just part of Hell's Kitchen. Yeah. And it's just like he goes through this whole thing and then eventually gets to the point where he's like, okay, I killed this person. Now I know some of the people that were, like, this person was involved with, like, who their family are and everything else. And he just feels guilty. So he's just like, I gotta go to jail. The old like Catholic guilt. If I believe in in the justice system or believe it, then I gotta go to jail, and that's what he does. And it's just like where the arc's going is just like it's not like I said, that old trope of like, oh, he didn't do it and somebody set him up. It's like, no, he just did it. He did it.
I was just gonna say, like, that would have been the most comic booky thing of all time. It was like, oh, did I kill somebody? Oh, it was the Kingpin for sure, you know, kind of thing. And then just to be like, no, he did it is crazy. And I like the fact that it's like it subverts that comic trope, but then hard cut to him in a jumpsuit with a mask on.
Yeah.
Like that's so. That's so. Do people try to take it off? Like, yeah, I bet.
Yeah, like it's just so good. And then like I said, like in prison now he's becoming like the person that he hates the most in the Kingpin, because he's slowly becoming this. Like I just remember seeing this picture of like these the warden and stuff come into the area of the prison. There's like this giant stack of like books and furniture and all this other stuff, and it's all piled up and parts of it's on fire, and there's like all these guys standing around, and he's just sitting in a chair at the top of it, like the Kingpin of prison.
That's so dope.
It's just cool. And then the fight between like the Elektra Bullseye thing is just like, it's crazy. Yeah, the art. They've had some guest artists come in, and it hasn't affected it as far as the comic is concerned, because the writing, in my opinion, has just been so great. Oh, man. So when the artist comes back, or when the artist's on, it's one of my favorites. And I have to say, like, out of the run, like between Bendis and then unfortunately the two runs between Bendis, not so great. Soul's run wasn't too bad, but now this run is like Daredevil's like actually kind of became like one of my favorite, and then you had the Netflix series and everything else. Yeah. He's kind of become one of my like top heroes. Like I don't think I could ever replace Spider-Man. Yeah. But if he doesn't watch it, Daredevil's like right behind him right now.
I think it's very interesting too that you mentioned the Netflix show, because I was gonna say that was my favorite part. I mean, I love season 2 Daredevil. Like maybe not everything with Elektra, but everything with Punisher was great. But that was one of the best parts of it, was when they're in court. Foggy almost gets him off, and then Punisher goes, "Nah, I fucking did it," and then goes to jail, and then just beats the shit out of everybody there. It was so good.
Well, it's funny because the artist Cheto, or however you pronounce his name, and I apologize for butchering it. He did a Punisher run. Yeah. And his art for Punisher was just as good. Yeah. Like, it was just great. Like he just gets the. It's not gritty. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It
That's
just
cool.
does
I'll have to read it. I'll have to read it for sure. I think that's another thing, is that I feel like again I keep saying this, but like we gotta do another podcast where we talk about should superheroes be registered and like regulated and whatnot, because I feel like this is a really good example of why superheroes should be, because you have guys like Daredevil and Batman, where it's like you're just a person. So if you like get knocked around, you should be out of commission. But like there's constantly the comic book trope of, oh, I just bandaged myself up and got back on the horse. Especially Daredevil, that's like his whole thing, right? And it's like, no, there's a good chance you're gonna kill somebody. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what happened. Like, like I said, it was funny because they ended the last series with him basically on the brink of death. Like, is he gonna die? Is he not gonna die? And he basically did, because he pushed somebody out of the way and then got hit by a car. Yeah. And then he's in this thing. Well, the continuation of this, like as this one starts, is like he's now out of the hospital and stuff, but he's not okay. His senses aren't back to where they are. His reflexes aren't great. He's taking pills for his heart and all kinds of stuff. Like he's just not right. And then playing into that, like he goes out and I'm like, oh, I'm Daredevil, and then he goes and kills somebody because he's not on. Yeah, and it was just the way they did it, like the way that story, that beginning arc started, where he was like, "No, I know I'm being framed," and he's going around. It was like every time they tease like, "Oh, maybe this was what it was," and he'd like go investigate or check it out. It was like, no, that's not what happened. Yeah, it was. And it just eventually got to the point where it was like, no, I actually did do this.
Wow, that's so cool. I gotta read that for sure. Oh man, so yeah, I like the fact that mine is just a comedy fest and yours is like, he's in jail, man. He killed a man. It's like, just the two sides of the coin, right? Yeah, that's. So
I do have to say, like, if I were to throw out a runner up, I'll ask you what your runner up is. I have a soft spot for zombie comics. Yeah. To a degree, it was DC's Dead Planet, the second go. If you get a chance, read it. It's a short, quick read, because there's really only two series. There's the original Deceased, and then there's Dead Planet. It was quick and dirty, but it was just like there were so many great moments, and just to see like Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern all like as these. And again, I know I'm gonna get shit on by somebody saying like, oh, they weren't zombies, they were infected by something else. It's like, yeah, I get it, it's a fucking zombie. It was just so cool because you had to see all these other superheroes, especially the younger ones like Damian Wayne and Superboy, step up and become the new superheroes. And it was just a bloodbath.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. It was like what a weird thing to be reading during the pandemic. Yeah. But I was just like, this is my jam. I couldn't wait for the graphic novel to come out as soon as it did. I read it right away. Yeah. Very much enjoyed it. Not at the top, like as far as writing and it was like, oh, this was such a great story. It was just like a bloodbath.
It's a good time.
It was just a good time.
And I mean, Deceased is such a good name.
Yeah,
like,
Deceased.
Deceased. Yeah. I mean, you had Marvel Zombies, which is such a like, okay, of course, but the Deceased is like that's a good play on it. I think my closest thing I could say to the top 5 was because I liked Al Ewing so much on Immortal Hulk. I went back and started reading older Al Ewing stuff, and I finally got around to reading Ultimates. Like
Ultimates did you?
1.
Okay,
yeah, Ultimates 1 and Ultimates 2, which is funny because like I mean, of course, I'm a huge Ultimate Universe guy, so have them steal the name was a little bit funny, but it's just. Again, I think the thing that I love most about Al Ewing is he just escalates things so much crazier. Like the fact that they cured Galactus, and then Galactus is just their buddy, and at one point they're just fighting the creator of the universe, and it's just like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
I really like that team.
Yeah, it's a good team.
It's such an interesting team. And such an interesting concept, and they had Rycroft or the artist that was fantastic for that run as well. Really too bad that they didn't keep that going because I liked a lot of the characters in that. Yeah, back in
like I think it was 2015. So yeah, it was a pretty decent range. So yeah, I mean those are our top 5 for 2021. Are there any books or stories that you've heard things of that you want to try to check out for next year? Anything kind of tickling your fancy?
I've been reading the Iron Man series of late. I'm a couple issues behind. I'm very confused because it's so weird. But the story, what I can say is not weird is where the writer, at least in the parts that I've been reading, has been exploring like who Tony Stark really is and what does he really want and who is he? Like really just doing this like super deep dive into the characters, like very serious that way, and then at the same time he puts together a team with like Frogman and Scarlet Spider and the Gargoyle and like just a bunch of randos, and it's so bizarre.
Man, is that not a fall from grace?
But like all I've heard, like all I've seen, like I've been reading it kind of haphazardly on the side. All I've heard from people saying is just like this is one of the best comic, like this is developing and becoming one of the best comic books out there, just because of like the deep dive story of where this is going. So I really have to make a concerted effort to get jumped into that one. And the other one would be Fantastic Four. Since Silva took over as the artist, there was a little run there that I had heard nothing but people raving about it. So I got to check that out.
I've heard nothing but good things about DC lately, which is very interesting here. I've heard all the Wonder Woman stuff is amazing.
You know what? I heard that just the other day.
Yep. So I'm really curious about that. Apparently they have a storyline where it's like them in the medieval ages, which sounds really cool. And then Aquaman apparently has a child now. So I'm really curious. So I'm hoping in 2022 I'm able to go to a comic book store and actually buy DC comics. And I'm not paying for 2 comic book online subscriptions. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's our top 5 for 2021. We hope everybody has a great holiday season, a great New Year's. In January, we will be doing a podcast where we catch up on all the MCU stuff post Black Widow.
Yes.
Which is a lot. So we're saving it for the new year. So look forward to that, especially because we had to wait for Spider-Man to come out.
Yes,
so
of course.
Which is gonna be. I'm so excited.
I see one more trailer of that.
I know, right?
I'm gonna lose my mind.
It's gonna be nuts. So we look forward to that. Make sure to like and follow us wherever you found us. Let us know in the comic books, in the comic books. Yeah. Let us know in the comments what your favorite was for the year, and we'll see you all next time.
Happy holidays.